Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 104 based on novel. So let's start. Everyone was shocked as they studied everything with the help of Hua Yuhao's spiritual detection. With Hua Yuhao around, they didn't need to use their eyes to see. They could just sense all the information. There were many teams competing in this tournament, and these people weren't all of them. However, there were more than 30 soul sages among those who were registering right now. Undoubtedly, they were the teachers and leaders of teams that were here to compete in the tournament. It also proved that many sects and academies treated this tournament very seriously. It was important to know that soul sages were a big deal everywhere on the continent. For this tournament, at least 1/5 of all the outstanding soul masters on the continent would be gathered in Radiant City. After briefly observing everyone in the lobby, Hua Yuhao's spiritual detection started to change perspective. It was moved upwards, and quickly saw through the main structure of the hotel. The Mingyu Hotel was made using a mixture of reinforced steel and concrete. Some of the more important areas were constructed using extra-high tensile steel. There were rooms of varying sizes. The higher up they went, the larger the rooms were. Hua Yuhao estimated that there were close to 2,000 rooms in this hotel, which itself covered more than 15 hectares. There were close to 200 rooms on each story, and more than 10 corridors. It was only such a huge hotel that could accommodate the number of people attending such a large-scale tournament. All the competing teams' members were staying in this hotel. Although it seemed a little packed, the hotel could accommodate everyone as long as 2 people shared one room. If it were any other empire, at least 3 to 5 hotels would be needed. This fact alone demonstrated how big and powerful the Sun Moon Empire was. After 10 minutes, Hua Yuhao reopened his eyes. In these 10 minutes, he had used his spiritual detection to show his teammates the ranks of the soul masters registering in the lobby, the structure of the hotel, and the condition of the rooms. His spiritual detection managed to reach 500 meters in radius, with him as the center. Oh, a familiar face. Hua Yuhao looked slightly stunned. Everyone looked over as they were guided by Hua Yuhao's spiritual detection. There was a group approaching them, and all of them recognized their leader. She was the Star Luo Empire's princess, Her Imperial Highness Shu Jojo, who had given them a lot of trouble in the last tournament. They didn't recognize the others behind her. After all, those who had competed in the last tournament were more than 20 now, and had to be replaced for this tournament. Shu Jojo's personal visit was shocking enough. However, the bunch of youths following her were evidently top opponents too. They were selected by the Star Luo National Academy, and thus they were naturally the best of the best. The Star Luo National Academy had been one of the top 4 academies in the last tournament. Shu Jojo was astonished right now. She was only looking at one person, Hua Yuhao. Yes, she only walked over because she saw him. She didn't expect him to be in such a state. Hua Yuhao. Shu Jojo walked in front of everyone. All of them stood up to greet her, with the exception of Hua Yuhao. Hua Yuhao smiled as he faced Shu Jojo. He said, "Your Highness, it's been a long time." Shu Jojo was shocked. "I was curious when I saw the wheelchair. I was wondering which team brought along a disabled person. After that, I realized it was you. What happened to you?" Shu Jojo respected Hua Yuhao immensely. In the last tournament, Hua Yuhao had led Shrek Academy to the end even though his cultivation was weak. In the final duel, he had defeated the strongest pairing from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy, the Hongchen siblings, and won the championship. At that point in time, the Emperor of the Star Luo Empire had appraised Hua Yuhao highly. After the tournament ended, he even sent someone to investigate Hua Yuhao's background. He even knew that Hua Yuhao entered the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy as an exchange student. The imperial family of the Star Luo Empire had also monitored Hua Yuhao closely, as he developed quickly. When they realized Hua Yuhao had entered the Sea God's Pavilion, they placed more attention on him than ever. The Emperor of the Star Luo Empire, Shu Jiayin, had once told Shu Jojo that Hua Yuhao was Shrek Academy's future. However, he was sitting in a wheelchair now. Was he really the one-of-a-kind talent who possessed twin martial souls, an ultimate martial soul, great fighting abilities, and almost limitless potential? Shu Jojo's investigations had revealed that Hua Yuhao was from the Star Luo Empire. Although his background was unclear, it was a fact that he was from the Star Luo Empire. While Shrek Academy was huge, it was only an academy. Even if Hua Yuhao took on an extremely important role in the academy in the future, he wouldn't be at the academy forever, and would have to venture out occasionally. That would be the Star Luo Empire's chance. Shu Jiayin had personally instructed her that Hua Yuhao had to be pulled over to the empire once he ventured out from the academy. If he could serve the empire, he would become a pillar of the empire in the future. Every one of them knew that Hua Yuhao could become a transcendent Doluor in the future with his potential. Furthermore, he could even reach the level of an ultimate Doluor. What did an ultimate Doluor represent? A strategic existence. Shrek Academy only became an existence that no empire dared to trifle with because of Elder Mu. If a titled Doluor could obliterate a city, an ultimate Doluor could change the outcome of a war. Although there was an unspoken rule that a soul master of a certain level couldn't attack ordinary people, the threat that a strong soul master brought to his enemies was already quite terrifying. Over the past few years, the Sun Moon Empire's military had been very active. The Star Luo and Heavenly Soul Empires were under great pressure. This was especially true for the Star Luo Empire, the second strongest empire on the continent. If they could pull Hua Yuhao, and even Shrek Academy, over to their side, the Star Luo Empire would become strong enough to challenge the Sun Moon Empire. After the last tournament ended, why did the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's left arm bone end up in Hua Yuhao's hands as if it were a gift? It was bait by the Emperor of the Star Luo Empire. It was just that they didn't have a chance to interact after that. Today, Shu Jojo was shocked to find out that Hua Yuhao was seated in a wheelchair. His face was pale, which revealed that he was suffering from some kind of sickness. As she had been monitoring Hua Yuhao, she was clear on how important he was to Shrek Academy. He had ended up in such a state even though he was protected by Shrek Academy's titled Doluor. What exactly had happened? Shu Jojo was sharp enough. She could tell that there were indeed problems with Hua Yuhao's legs. Furthermore, his left arm also seemed very stiff. They were drooping and not in line with his body. He didn't seem to be acting. Thanks for your concern, Your Highness. I only ran into some problems. Hua Yuhao answered her calmly. Hua Yuhao was impressed by how the Emperor had tried to pull him over to his side. He also had a deep impression of Shu Jojo. It was a pity that Shu Jiarin and Shu Jojo didn't know that Hua Yuhao had a close relationship with the White Tiger Duke. It was also precisely because of the White Tiger Duke that Hua Yuhao had his own plans. He couldn't be pulled over to their side. It couldn't be any small problem since he was in a wheelchair. Shu Jojo furrowed her brow, but she couldn't possibly point this out. She hesitated for a moment. She greeted the rest of his team politely before asking Hua Yuhao, since you are already in this state, can you still compete? Furthermore, all of you are the reigning champions. Why are all of you waiting to register? According to the rules, the top 8 from the previous tournament have registration priority. We just completed our registration. Hua Yuhao replied, we are not representing Shrek Academy this time. As he said this, Shu Jojo's expression changed again in astonishment. They aren't representing Shrek Academy? She scanned everyone, and saw the complete lineup from the last tournament. None of them were missing. Why aren't they representing Shrek Academy? As the princess and leader of the intelligence department, Shu Jojo started to overthink things. When she took into account Hua Yuhao's body condition, she immediately believed that Shrek Academy was in huge trouble. Bei could tell that she was thinking too much from her expression. He hurriedly said, Your Highness, you are overthinking. We aren't representing the Academy because of the new rules. However, we are still a part of the Academy. The Academy sent another team over. Shu Jojo was stunned for a moment. Her expression was then restored, and she said in shock, if all of you aren't representing the Academy, then. Bei smiled and replied, we are representing the Tang sect. Tang sect. Shu Jojo didn't have a deep memory of this ancient sect that had disappeared for years. However, the Tang sect had once been famous on the continent. That was why she quickly reacted. All of you have joined the Tang sect? Shu Jojo asked. Bei nodded and replied, yes, we are from the Tang sect. The Tang sect was down once before, but our goal is to make it great again. Shu Jojo took a deep look at him before studying the rest of them. She nodded and said, all of you can do it. She wasn't being merely polite. These people in front of her had managed to become champions during the tournament even though they were only soul ancestors and below. Each of them possessed great potential, and they were all top students from Shrek Academy. A sect was quite powerful if they had a titled Doluor holding the reins. While the few of them weren't very old, they all had the potential to become titled Doluor in the future. After pondering for a moment, Shu Jojo immediately said, the history of the Tang sect goes back a long way. The first-generation Tang sect leader also contributed greatly to the world of soul masters. If your sect needs the help of the Empire in the future, we'll do anything to help. As she spoke, she retrieved a pure gold token and gave it to Bei. If the Tang sect requires any help from the Star Luo Empire in the future, any one of you can use this token and find me at Star Luo City. I'll do my best to help, if it's within my means. The token was heavy, and was carved with hollow tulip patterns on the front. On the back, there was an image of a tiger's head. It represented the imperial family's remembrance of the White Tiger dynasty. This token had great significance. Bei immediately turned serious and said, thank you for this gift, Your Highness. The Tang sect will always remember our friendship with the Star Luo Empire. I believe we'll have a chance to work together in the future. If the Tang sect's development only relied on Shrek Academy, it would mean that they were content to only exercise their influence over a certain region. However, This wasn't what Bei Bei wanted to see. He had promised Tang Ya that they would become the top sect on the continent. Right now, he was also working hard in this direction. Collaborating with the Star Luo Empire was very important to Bei Bei's plans. He didn't reject Shu Jojo's offer. Shu Jojo revealed a smile on her face as Bei Bei accepted the token. I hope that the day we work together will come soon. After she said that, she turned her attention to Hua Yuhao. Hua Yuhao, are you planning to compete in this state? Hua Yuhao laughed bitterly. Disabled people also have their rights. Your Highness, you can't judge people based on their looks. Shu Jojo's gaze changed slightly, and she smiled. I can't sense any bitterness from your voice. It seems like I worried too much. Hua Yuhao was a little stunned as he looked at her. A cute observation. Indeed, he felt very blissful, as he was immersed in Wang Dong's care every day even though he couldn't move his arms and legs. Naturally, he wasn't bitter at all. Your Highness, don't poke fun at a disabled person, Hua Yuhao said helplessly. Princess Jojo smiled and said, we'll wait and see whether I'm really mocking you. If we meet in the tournament, you must show some mercy. Although I never thought that the Star Luo National Academy would become champions, we can't be eliminated too soon, either. I'll make a move first. After she finished her piece, she left with the bunch of youths behind her. As she slowly walked away, Hua Yuhao appeared a little pensive. Bei Bei whispered as he asked, what did you see? Hua Yuhao gently shook his head. I only feel that I shouldn't be troubling this famous princess, since I'm not even a competitor. It wasn't too exaggerated to use the word famous to describe Shu Jojo. In the Star Luo Empire, she was an authoritative figure that everyone knew. She was also very beautiful, and everyone in the empire loved her. Bei Bei nodded slightly and said, let's counter changes with no changes. No matter what goal she has, she won't be targeting us. Hua Yuhao said, eldest senior, do you remember that I mentioned that the illustrious Virtue Hall was ambushed by the body sect? Bei Bei was stunned. What do you mean? She's involved. Hua Yuhao squinted and said, I'm not sure. However, the 100,000-year soul beast embryo was auctioned off at the Star Luo city. After that, there was a rumor that someone offered 100 million gold soul coins to obtain the embryo. Who's wealthy enough to offer such an astronomical figure? I believe the Sun Moon Empire would have noticed this, too. Whether it's direct or indirect, the body sect's ambush on the illustrious Virtue Hall must somehow be related to the Star Luo Empire. Bei Bei said softly, I wonder if the body sect will be here for the tournament. They have always been very mysterious. Surely the Sun Moon Empire isn't targeting the body sect by allowing sects to take part in the tournament. Shu Sancha groaned and said, don't underestimate the Sun Moon Empire. This is a renowned tournament that involves the entire continent. The Sun Moon Empire can't possibly use the tournament to target the body sect. Their goal isn't that simple. However, there must still be a degree of targeting involved. If the body sect doesn't come, it shows that they are scared of the empire. I believe it's still possible that they'll come. Xiao Xiao's expression changed, and she said, if the body sect comes, they'll be a threat to us. Jiang Nannan said, it's not just the body sect. There are many strong sects on the continent. We'll have to take this tournament step by step. Let's be steadier. Bei Bei commented, indeed. Yuhao, don't compete unless it's necessary. Hua Yuhao furrowed his brow and said, eldest senior, I have the exact opposite thinking as you. I hope to be the first to compete in every round of the tournament. What? Everyone was shocked when he said this. Wang Dong also exclaimed like a lady, even though she was dressed in a man's attire. Bei Bei creased his brow. Yuhao, you. Hua Yuhao smiled and said, don't panic, listen to me first. The greater the pressure, the more likely my potential can be inspired to fuse with the origin energy of ultimate ice in my body. Just by cultivating as a means to fuse this energy, I'll take years. However, I believe it'll be faster if I'm constantly fighting. Don't worry, I'll concede defeat if I can't take it. With my current cultivation, it shouldn't be difficult to win one round. Shu Sancha smiled and said, Yuhao, you can't say that. You are our secret weapon. We shouldn't use our secret weapon first. Isn't it good to hide it first? Hua Yuhao chuckled, I'll hide some of my abilities. It's not easy to see through the soul skills that my spirit eyes possess. Wang Dong said, no, you can't compete. You can't be the first to compete, either. No matter how strong your spirit eyes are, you can't move or dodge because of your body. If someone unleashes a long-range strike at you, what can you do? You already lack the ability to attack from long range. Without your entire body to coordinate, you'll be unable to unleash your potential even with soul tools. It's too dangerous. No one knew Hua Yuhao better than her. Hua Yuhao said, this isn't a problem. I have my own ways. Let me compete first in the first elimination round. If I can't make it, I won't make such a request again. Furthermore, I guarantee that I'll only fight 3 single rounds. Yes. Bei Bei looked at Wang Dong. In such matters, he needed to seek Wang Dong's approval first. After pondering for a while, Wang Donga nodded lightly and said, "All right, I'll let you try in the first round. However, your safety takes priority. This is for everyone, and for me." Hua Yuhao held her hands and smiled. "Don't worry, I can't bear to die. With my current state, it might not be a bad thing." Shu Sanxia coughed twice. "The two of you can't always be so immersed in yourselves. It's too provocative. Furthermore, Wang Donga is now Wang Dong. Aren't you afraid that others will misunderstand you?" Wang Donga and Hua Yuhao were stunned. Indeed, a few resting teams shot them weird glances. Wang Donga pulled her hands from Hua Yuhao's grasp and said as she glanced left and right, why aren't they letting us register yet? Their efficiency is really low. Compared to 5 years ago, all of them had changed greatly. It was very difficult for anyone to recognize them even though they had competed in the last tournament. After all, the changes from puberty were substantial. This was especially true for Hua Yuhao, Wang Donga, and Xiao Xiao. They weren't even 13 when they competed last time, but they were 17 now. Xiao Xiao was already a ravishing beauty. While Hua Yuhao was seated in a wheelchair, he was still a tall and large youth. He was 2 heads taller than he was 5 years ago. If Princess Jojo hadn't been monitoring him, she wouldn't have recognized him. That was why no one came to greet them even though they had been waiting for quite some time. Hua Yuhao noticed a few familiar teams. Of course, he only recognized their leaders. Although these teams had had preparatory squad members during the last tournament, he hadn't really noticed them too much. Over the past 5 years, he wasn't the only one who had changed. They had all been youths. Everyone else had changed greatly too. After waiting for an hour, they were finally led to the registration area. The registration area was at the center of the lobby. There was a long table that faced the doors, and there were 10 people in charge of registration. There was also a neat row of empty tables to one side. They were instructed to fill in a form. Bei Bei was in charge of filling out this form. Once he received the form, Bei Bei understood why they had had to wait so long. There were many things that he had to fill out. Detailed information on every official and preparatory squad member had to be written down, their name, age, sect, etc. It took 10 minutes just to fill out the form. After filling out the form, everyone had to take a photograph at the registration table. The camera was a special, auxiliary type Sol tool. It captured everyone's appearance. After the photographs were taken, they were directly printed on the registration form. This also demonstrated the leading position the Sun Moon Empire possessed in terms of technology. After the photography segment was over, they still had to undergo body and physical tests. This was to ensure that every competing member was 20 years old or younger. They were then led into a huge room in the hotel. There was already a queue in this room, but it was much simpler for the Tang sect there. After all, Nana was their only preparatory squad member. As they were over age, Ji Juechen and Jing Xian couldn't compete as preparatory squad members. Hua Yuhao wasn't a stranger to the equipment used to measure his body. It was just that he was wondering what kind of result would be produced as he was measured in his current state. It was their turn soon. Suddenly, Hua Yuhao felt petrified. A weird feeling caused him to turn to a corner of the measuring room. When his gaze landed on someone, he couldn't shift his eyes anymore. Hua Yuhao's voice cracked as he shouted, "Teacher Xiao Ya." This attracted the attention of everyone in the measuring room. After hearing Hua Yuhao exclamation, Bei Bei's body trembled violently. After that, he also turned in the same direction. There was a young lady in the corner of the room. She still possessed a slender figure, and was as ravishing as ever. She looked taller than she had been a few years back, but there was an unhealthy paleness to her face. Her sharp eyes seemed to have changed color. There was a hint of dark blue in her beautiful eyes. As she stood in the corner, she seemed to have assimilated with the shadows. If not for Hua Yuhao's acute senses, no one would have noticed her. Yes, she was Tang Ya. Compared to a few years ago before, when she had disappeared, her appearance hadn't changed much. Bei Bei's body stiffened when he saw her. After that, he started to tremble violently. He even had to grab hold of Hua Yuhao's wheelchair to stabilize himself. Xiao Ya. Only those who were familiar with him knew that Bei Bei had had a hard time not finding Tang Ya over these past few years. They hadn't expected to see her here. Hua Yuhao wasn't any less agitated than Bei Bei. To him, Tang Ya and Bei Bei were his benefactors. Furthermore, Tang Ya was the true sect leader of the Tang sect. After the Tang sect was re-established, Bei Bei had mentioned that he was only a temporary substitute for her. When she returned, she would be reinstated as the sect leader. Everyone agreed with his proposition too. He actually met Tang Ya here. He was extremely emotional right now. Tang Ya also looked over. She first saw Hua Yuhao in his wheelchair before she saw Bei Bei. She seemed a little lost, and didn't move from her position. She gave off the feeling that she had lost her soul. Bei Bei moved at this point. He was like a gust of wind right now as he burst towards Tang Ya. How long had it been? Tang Yue had gone missing just after the previous tournament had ended. It was close to 5 years now. They had turned from teenagers into youths. As he saw Tang Yue again, Bei felt that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. His heart was only filled with his boundless love for her. Right now, he wasn't as calm as before. There was only Tang Yue in his heart right now. He came in front of Tang Yue instantly and grabbed her shoulders forcefully. His voice was trembling as he said, "Xiao Yue, where have you been all these years? Did you know how hard a time I've had searching for you?" She was still in a daze even though he had grabbed her. She let him shake her body. At this point, Hu Yuhao sensed something amiss. He shouted, "Eldest senior, be careful." After hearing Hu Yuhao's words, he would have been cautious and wary of his surroundings if he were acting normally. However, he was too emotional now. 5 years of yearning. His lover who had occupied his entire heart had finally appeared. He couldn't be bothered with anything else. At this point, Tang Yue finally moved. She lifted her hands and pressed them against Bei's chest. It was as if she was resisting him. However, her dark blue eyes started to light up as she lifted her head in the next moment. Bei was stunned. He only felt that he had seen 2 deep valleys, and he was sucked into these valleys. In the next moment, a huge force struck his chest. He flew backward like a broken kite. Fresh blood sprayed from his mouth. His entire body was engulfed by a dark blue glow, which was swallowing his life power maniacally. After Hu Yuhao told Bei to be cautious, the rest of Shrek's 7 monsters acted too. Shu Sancha was the first to burst out. While he had always bickered with Bei, they actually shared a close relationship. He unleashed his martial soul as he stepped out. It was a pity that Tang Yue's action was too sudden. Who would have expected her to make a move on Bei? Shu Sanchi's mysterious underworld displacement was too late. He leapt up as he saw Bei in the air and cushioned his fall. At the same time, a pitch-black light engulfed Bei's body and resisted the violation of the dark blue glow. Shu Sanchi's expression changed the moment their soul power met. It was very strong. The soul power that Tang Yue had left on Bei's body was too dense and consolidated, and it even possessed an extremely dominant, corrosive force. Shu Sancha couldn't gain an advantage over it even with his cultivation. Fortunately, Bei's cultivation wasn't weak. He unleashed his own soul power and strongly resisted the invasive soul power. Tang Yue had only pushed him, she hadn't unleashed an attack. She had unleashed the soul power that poured into his body, but didn't directly attack his chest. As a result, Bei's bones were fine even though he was slightly injured. "Xiao Yue, are you crazy?" Shu Sancha shouted at Tang Yue as he tried to resist her soul power. At this point, a few men in black stepped in front of Tang Yue. One of the elders looked in the direction of group representing the Tang sect. Hu Yuhao's body shuddered as he saw this elder. His expression also turned dismal. He recognized him. That was because he was one of the assassins who had intercepted Hu Yuhao's return to Shrek Academy a few months ago. Zhong Peng, Scorpion Tiger Doluor, and Half-Evil Soul Master. He was a rank 96 Transcendent Doluor. He wasn't inferior to Dean Yang Shaozhe in a fight. Now he had appeared here, and in front of Tang Yue. What did it mean? Furthermore, Tang Yue's soul power evidently contained the aura of an evil soul master. Nana was very pale right now. There were only 3 words going through her mind right now: Holy Ghost Church. It was the Holy Ghost Church. The rest of the Tang sect also came up beside Bei. Wang Donga pressed her hands on Bei's shoulders and poured in her pure power of light. Along with Shu Sanchi's Xuanwu soul power, the dark blue aura was expelled from his body. Bei's expression was extremely pale, and there was fresh blood flowing from his nose. Tang Yue's strike didn't just hurt his body, it also broke his heart. He didn't expect Tang Yue to give him such a huge gift after 5 years without seeing her. Zhong Peng wore a cold look as he looked towards everyone from the Tang sect. He was stunned when he saw Hu Yuhao in his wheelchair. He squinted his eyes and appeared pensive. Tang Yue acted like she didn't see all of them. After hitting Bei, she turned around and left. A few other men in black followed beside her. Even Zhong Peng did the same thing. Bei struggled, but he couldn't get up. There was also blood in his mouth. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Xiao Yue." Tang Yue didn't stop. She quickly left, as if she hadn't seen anything. However, there was a slight quiver of emotion in her eyes. Hu Yuhao arrived beside Bei in his wheelchair, with Ji Juechen's help. He grabbed onto Bei's wrist and softly said, "Eldest senior, calm down." His gaze was gentle, and a slight wave of spiritual power engulfed Bei's head. Yuhao used the gentle and spiritual aura to soothe Bei's turmoil. Wang Donga continued to pour her soul power into Bei's body and helped him expel Tang Yue's soul power from his body. However, it wasn't to great effect. Tang Yue's soul power was too domineering, and continued to run riot in Bei's body, whereas Bei wasn't able to control his own soul power to resist Tang Yue's soul power. Just Wang Dong's strength alone didn't seem to be enough. Tears started to stream down Beibei's face. He was normally very tough, but his tough exterior was torn down after he saw Tang Yue again. Hu Yuhao said softly, "Eldest senior, don't be sad. That wasn't teacher Xiao Yue's intention. She's with a bunch of evil soul masters. If I'm not wrong, she must have been abducted by evil soul masters. Do you remember the Holy Ghost Church that I mentioned before? It must be them. She must be under their control. Eldest senior, you are our pillar. You must remain strong. It's only in this way that we can think of a way to save teacher Xiao Yang from those devils." After hearing Hu Yuhao's words, Beibei calmed down a little. He was a little lost as he looked at Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao nodded his head heartily at him. If teacher Xiao Yue were clear-headed, she wouldn't have done that to you. Eldest senior, you are confused because you are too concerned about her. No matter what it is, we've seen teacher Xiao Yue. It's better than not knowing where she is. Don't worry, we'll do our best to save her. Beibei was in a daze. As the eldest senior of the sect and one of the most outstanding young talents from Shrek Academy, he managed to regain his focus with Hu Yuhao's help after momentarily losing control. He shut his eyes, and a blue glow was released from his body. Fine scales also started to surface on his skin. The strong side of the blue lightning tyrant dragon was revealed. He expelled the violent soul power with Wang Dong's help. The room also descended into chaos from what had happened. Very soon, soul masters from the Sun Moon Empire entered the room to maintain order and interrogate the Tang sect. Shu Sancha represented the Tang sect and answered their questions. He only said that there was a misunderstanding which led to a conflict. Whether it was because of Tang Yue or Beibei, he didn't wish to escalate this matter. They performed their body measurements after this. Although Beibei underwent the measurements, his injuries were still quite bad. After he finished his measurements, Shu Sancha carried him to his room to rest. The rest also went through their measurements smoothly. After all, it was just to verify their age. To keep the abilities of the competing teams a secret, there weren't any measurements to test their soul power and cultivation. It was different from the tests that Hu Yuhao went through when he first entered the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Hu Yuhao was the last to take his measurements. He was lifted onto the scale by Wang Dong. When she did that, everyone's expression turned weird, including those who were from the Sun Moon Empire. Is this disabled man here to compete too? Is there a mistake? The staff in charge of the measurement scale asked Wang Dong. Wang Dong raised her brows. She couldn't stand it when others looked down on Hu Yuhao. However, Hu Yuhao interrupted just before she flared up. There shouldn't be a rule that restricts a disabled person from competing, am I right? There isn't, it's just that there's a limited quota. The staff answered subconsciously. Hu Yuhao said, there are only 8 members from our sect, and only 1 preparatory squad member. There isn't any wastage. Just take it that I'm here to make up the numbers. Since they didn't violate any rules, the staff didn't stop them. He activated the measurement scale and helped Hu Yuhao with the test. A streak of dim blue light rose from the scale and scanned Hu Yuhao's calves. It was using his bone age to calculate his actual age. It was one of the most efficient methods. However, he was soon stunned. That was because there wasn't any response from the scale. There wasn't any feedback after the scan. What was going on? After so many tests, this was the first time something like this had happened. The output was increased, and the blue light became stronger. Hu Yuhao's legs were scanned once again. Hu Yuhao was a little annoyed as he said, "Brother, I'm a cripple. My legs are different. You should scan my right hand. My right hand is the only limb that's fine." As he spoke, he bent his body forward and extended his right arm beside his leg. Indeed, the measuring scale responded to this. It evidently showed that Hu Yuhao's bone age was 17. Hu Yuhao completed the measurements as the staff watched with weird looks in their eyes. Wang Dong lifted him back into his wheelchair before pushing him towards the exit. After they left, there was a huge commotion in the room. What sect is he from? Why did the sect send a cripple? I think that it's called the Tang sect. What kind of sect is the Tang sect? Has anyone heard of it before? No. It must be a small sect. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so pathetic. He's really pitiful, losing the use of his legs and left arm even though he's only 17. Because of this, we should respect his courage for choosing to compete in this tournament. Hi, can he really compete in that condition? Is he going to sit in a wheelchair to compete? All types of discussions were going on right now. Wang Dong clenched her lips tightly as she pushed Hu Yuhao's wheelchair. Her eyes were already tearing up. Although Hu Yuhao couldn't see behind him, he could sense Wang Dong's emotional turmoil. He gently tapped her hand and smiled. Don't you think this is interesting? If I become the eventual champion, won't their eyes drop out? Wang Dong held onto his hand tightly. Hu Yuhao sighed as he felt her icy cold hand. Dong, do you want me to be happy, blissful and always wearing a smile on my face? Wang Dong was stunned for a moment. She replied, of course. Hua Yuhao replied, in that case, you must be happy so that I can sense your smile every minute and second. You must smile in the face of everything. Wang Donger's figure shuddered a little, and her face turned red. Her voice was trembling slightly. Yuhao, Hua Yuhao tapped her hands again. Let's go. We should return to our rooms to rest too. I wonder how eldest senior is. Teacher Xiao Ye has finally appeared, which is a good thing. We should also quickly discuss how we should deal with this matter. Okay. Wang Donger calmed herself down and pushed Hua Yuhao out of the measurement room. According to the arrangements made by the Sun Moon Empire Tournament Committee, the competing sects and academies were segregated. For example, Shrek Academy's team was ranked at the top, and stayed in the best rooms and received the best treatment. This was also the same for all the sects. The more reputable a sect was, the better the treatment they received. As for the Tang sect, those in charge of registration didn't know that they were the members of the team that won the tournament the last time around. They only knew that the Tang sect wasn't reputable, and their members were given the most ordinary rooms. The Tang sect was at the bottom of the hierarchy. The inferior rooms were located at the lower stories of the hotel. The first story consisted of the lobby, the wellness center and a few restaurants etc. The Tang sect team was assigned rooms on the second story. The Mingyu Hotel was the largest hotel in the Sun Moon Empire. Even their most ordinary rooms were not bad. They were just a little small. Each room was around 20 square meters in size, but there was a toilet in each room. The internal decorations were simple, and there were 2 single beds in each room. Although 20 square meters wasn't considered very spacious for 2 people, it wasn't cramped either. However, all 10 contestants from the Tang sect were squeezed into one room right now. There wasn't even space for them to walk. Bei Bei was lying on the bed. His face was pale, but he was clear-headed. Furthermore, it seemed like he had regained his composure. Wang Donger pushed Hua Yuhao in his wheelchair as they were the last 2 to enter the room. The rest looked very serious as they surrounded Bei Bei. After Hua Yuhao entered, Xiao Xiao and He Kaitu moved away, and let Wang Donger push Hua Yuhao in front of the bed. Eldest senior, are you feeling better? Hua Yuhao asked concernedly, and extended his right hand to take Bei Bei's pulse. Bei Bei's injury was quite serious. Tang Ye's soul power had shaken his internal organs. Although his organs were put back into their original position when they did emergency treatment on him, his vital energy was still greatly affected. But Bei Bei had a strong foundation, and thus he wasn't seriously ill. Even so, he would have to lie in bed for 8 to 10 days. However, the tournament wouldn't wait for him to recover. In another 3 days, the tournament would begin. Before it even started, Hua Yuhao was already crippled, and Bei Bei was already seriously injured. The entire team was in a bad shape right now. If Hua Yuhao was the soul and brains of this team, Bei Bei was the backbone. Now, neither of them were in their best state, which affected everyone else. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.